Hi, this is Uber here, and I'll be talking about my League Starter for 3.17 and generally how I went about scaling this League Starter and how I'm doing right now. So I was a bit hesitant to kind of show off this build, or rather talk about this build early, mainly because I didn't want people to compete with me for certain pieces, which I thought would be hard to get. But now, since League Start is almost over, it's 5 days into the league, I can be a bit more open on what actually, how I actually play this character and how, I managed to kill the two new bosses with it, as well as a 140 something depth AUL, or all, how you pronounce that. So this build is specifically for mapping. It's specifically for mapping fast, and it's not actually a bossing character. But at the same time, you should generally be able to do bosses perfectly fine because you get about I think currently about 2 million poison DPS on my skill, and all it needs really is a 5 link dendro bait, and the rest are pretty much 10C uniques or less. Let me explain. So this is a Pathfinder, right? I'm currently level 94. And generally this is what the 3 will look like. This is very similar to what I was playing in Delirium Everywhere, with a bit of tweaks here and there. So let me just slowly explain how the build works. So you're basically scaling damage off your shield because you're using shield crush, and then when you kill stuff with your shield, you have explosions from obliterations one. The obliteration explosions can poison, and that basically gives you really high amounts of plague barrier almost instantaneously. So you'll be able to like sit on almost max plague barrier for the entirety of the map, and all you do is just run through packs. So I kind of want to just show you an example of this. So I have a strand map here. One and Exarch Influence. I have Sulfite because I like to do Delve, and because it synergizes very well with how I want to play the game, which is to just clear a lot of stuff very quickly and run through them. So Delve is pretty fun for me as well. Mean by favorites. I don't want to pick these up. That's fine. It's my what was it? Paradise.
That would only slow me down.
So I didn't really juice my map because I need this for fun. So I didn't really juice my map. So if I had way more density, things would just explode because, as you notice, what happens is I will kill stuff, or either my Plague Bearer will kill stuff, or my Shield Crush will kill stuff, and then the Obliteration ones will cause explosions. The explosions have a chance to poison, which ends up killing more stuff. So the reason why I've gone for this build for mapping is because you have a form of explode that can prolife, and the prolifs can explode. So you basically have some form of chaining. As long as you have some high amounts of density, you can pretty much just explode the entire screen, and you clear super fast. A lot of it is just mainly movement and how I play. I'm not exactly a very zoomy person, so you notice I could be more efficient with how I move around and how I pick up stuff. But I want to play this game kind of casually, and yeah. So I'm gonna briefly run
I'm
through
not
what you kind of need to get this build off the ground. It's not gonna be very much. Let me just put stuff into my storage list. So generally, when you first start this build, you're likely gonna first level a Poison Concoction character. Your skill tree is gonna be very similar, with the exception of maybe you will have these three nodes here. But after you hit like white or yellow maps, I would suggest you start transitioning to a Shield Crush setup. And the reason why the Shield Crush setup I feel is better than that Poison Concoction is mainly because you have Obliteration, right? That's it. Because you have Explode, and the Explodes are 25% of the mob's life, and then you can poison off those explosions. Yeah, and you see that kind of clear happening. And the reason why you want to transition as well is it's relatively easy to get a good shield by the time you hit white and yellow maps because you have the currency to make the swap. And I will show you the kind of shield you should be going for. So let me go in a little bit into detail on some of the items I have and how much they cost. Give you a rough gauge of how much it would cost you if you were to start playing the build. So, this was the chest armor I was using for a long while until I actually bought this and then, you know, 4 it. But for a long while I was using this and I could do reds pretty fine. So it's not a problem for you if you were to try out this build. Uh, so you would use a Dendrobait, ideally a 5 link at least. It's actually a pseudo 6 link because it gives you 10% chance to poison. You have an obliteration one. You don't need to have the implicits or the corrupted implicits that I have, but it's nice to have Unholy Might because that gives you a 30% more damage whenever it procs. And you proc it quite often because you're just killing a lot of packs. Right, so ideally you should at least have that. But if you're lucky enough and you find an increased area effect plus Unholy Might, please go ahead. That's probably the best in slot for that. The helm is going to be the Gull, and the reason why the Gull is super good this league is because they are Shrine nodes. So Shrine nodes are, for example, are these, the increased duration of Shrine effect, as well as the additional Shrine, guaranteed Shrine per map. And these ones as well, Shrines grant an additional Shrine effect and 30% increased effect of Shrine effects and 20% increased effect of Shrine effects. So with all these shrine nodes, you basically have a lot of zoom because all you're doing is picking up shrines, and the buffs are quite really useful. So Gull is literally the best 1C unique you can probably get for a helm, unless you're a mini build, I think. So with this, I would generally prefer a different, enchantment, but shield crush damage is perfectly fine too. So I went for that. Uh, Obviously it's gonna be more expensive with the enchantment, so you don't have to use one. You just have to just use a random gull. It will cost you probably one chaos at max. Uh, for the obliteration one, to get unholy mind, it's probably like 2 or 3 chaos. So this is also really cheap. So chest armor, dendroblade with a 5 link, you can link it yourself. Should cost you maybe about 10 to 15 chaos, depending on the rolls of your dendroblade. Uh, I wouldn't suggest you get this early, and it's also possible that you can use something else because dendroblade requires a lot of dex and intelligence to get it working well, and you also kind of need a lot of strength to use a shield. So those are a lot of stats you need. It's possible to uh, use an Astromendus to solve those problems, but Astromendus is generally way too expensive at League Start to use, so I wouldn't advise it. Uh, for my ring down here, I have a lot of stats. This is actually quite expensive. I wouldn't suggest you get this, but you can probably get the stats more split out. So you could get the strength on your gloves and your boots, or you can get it on your amulet, right? You can see my amulet here. I've just gone for damage and life, but you could have, you could go for something else like just pure stats in your amulet, and your rings can have a lot more utility and resistances. So I would suggest that for now I've kind of moved away from that, so you can just do the budget option. Okay, Death Rush is probably one of the best rings you can use for this build, mainly because it gives guaranteed onslaught and on kill. Right, it's not a chance for onslaught; it's guaranteed onslaught and kill. It gives you accuracy, which you need as because your attack build. It gives you armor, which is also pretty nice because you are using determination and grace, so any armor is helpful. It has flat life and quite a bit of chaos resistance, and that's why it's kind of nice. So this is 1C unique right now. At least that's probably 2 to 3 C chaos. So just buy one. It's relatively affordable and cheap. So now when it comes to the weapon, okay, the thing is, I honestly feel like they kind of buff Shield Crush because they actually buffed the Vix Lunaris. So previously, Vix Lunaris had lower values of armor and evasion. I think it was like total amount of armor and evasion was like 1.1k or 1k armor and evasion. But right now, it can possibly roll up to 1.6 or 1.5 total armor and evasion. So that helps you get very good damage right off the bat with Shield Crush. It also comes with life, and it also makes you unable to be frozen, right? Which is very helpful especially when you don't have your Pantheon yet. So I already have my Pantheon, so I don't really need this. But at the same time, Magna Eclipses is also another cheap shield. So I would say Magna Eclipses is about 10 chaos. You try to find one with good armor values and evasion and energy shield. Well, mostly evasion and armor. And then you just quality it up to 30 with a Cryxic Vessel or something. So I would suggest using this. I actually beat the new bosses with this. I beat all with this, so you don't really need like a super crazy shield that costs a couple exalts in order to do decent damage. Of course, if I were to let's say get a 2,600 armor shield, uh, I would increase my damage by about 30% more or 20 to 30% more. But at the same time, I'm quite happy with my 10 20 KR shield right here. One other thing is that, let's say if you get a 2,600 armor shield, likelihood is that it won't have any life because you're using all the prefixes for armor. But in this case, when it comes to the Magna Eclipses, you actually have about, in this case, about 1,900 armor and evasion, sorry, uh, while still having about 90 life, which is pretty nice. So that's why I would suggest using it. There's also another reason why I would suggest using a Vix Lunaris as well as a Magna Eclipses, because you can put Plague Bearer in it. So what I have is I have Plague Bearer here, and Plague Bearer being here gives it 2 more levels because it gives 2 levels of Socketed Gems, so that's 22. And then if you add in a Empower Sport, which is quite cheap, about 30-40 kills, probably the most expensive thing you'll get for this build. You don't have to have it, but it does make your quality of life much better because your plate barrages will do more damage, right? And you can store more poisons. So I would suggest going to Shu just because you can do this. So right now I have about 25 levels in Plague Bearer. If I actually got the Plague Bearer 21, crop the 21 gem, this would be 26. And then when you have the passives that give you Plague Bearer with increased maximum plague value, you're gonna have about 1.6 mil, I think, in Plague Bearer stored value, which is very helpful for clear. So yeah, I would suggest getting this cheap shield, and that's kind of all you need. So in total, what, 2 chaos. This is 1 chaos, and this is probably like 10 to 15, 20 chaos. And then the chest armor is like 10 chaos or 50, 20 chaos, depending on whether or not you link it yourself. And then use harvest to color it to get 4 reds and 1 green and 1 blue. Or you can go like 3 reds, 2 greens and 1 blue. So for the gloves and boots, you're generally gonna get something, accessible. This cost me about 5 chaos, and this also cost me about 4 to 5 chaos. I haven't replaced them because I've been lazy, but honestly, I probably want to get looking at. I will probably want to look at to replace this sometime soon. Mainly because it's quite sad, right? Um, I could probably get way better options right now for like 20, 30 chaos, maybe even 10 chaos. So it's kind of inexcusable that I'm keeping on to these, but that's fine. So all you're looking for really is chance to suppress spell damage as high as possible, life, resistances, and movement speed for boots. And for gloves, kind of want accuracy, maximum life, resistances, attack speed, and spells suppress spell damage. So if you can get any of the combination of these on your gloves, that would be great too. And the reason why you want spell suppression is because on your gloves and your boots is because you don't really get them off your helm. You're using the gull. You get it off your chest armor because you're using a dendrobit, and you don't get it off your shield because your shield is strength based and it's a unique that doesn't have spell suppression. So finally we go on to the belt, and for the belt it's another 1 or 2 C unique. So this is the Tactician. And the reason why the Tactician is so nice is that it gives you quite a high amount of strength and intelligence, which you will need to use your Obliteration. So Obliteration requires 179 intelligence, which is quite substantial. It's very hard to get the stats you need to run this build. And you also need the strength for this determination. So in this case, you notice I've pushed strength way past the determination requirement, which is 159 for 21. And the reason being is that I get 21% elemental resistances, all elemental resistances, when I have 200 strength. So that's the only reason why I've done that. But I honestly feel like you don't have to do that. Uh, I just figured that it's a cheap way of getting like elemental resist. Also, one more thing, it does give global physical damage, which your Shield Crush is a physical base skill. So I think it does give damage to your poisons. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it does. And the main reason, probably the main reason why you get this, other than filling all those requirements, is that you get 50% increased flash charges gain. And why is that useful for a Pathfinder? It's useful for a Pathfinder because you're going to use Flagellant Flask. So right now I have like almost a perfect set of Flagellant Flask. You won't have this. But I would advise at least getting one that gives you gain 5 charges when you are hit by an enemy. And then you get a Topaz, Sapphire, and Ruby Flask. And then a Quicksilver probably. You can also get Flagellant on your Divine Life Flask, so or Masochist, and then that will help you as well with dealing with incoming damage. If you notice, I rarely ever have to use my flask; they will ultimately proc for me. So use when charges reach full, and they all have about 9.6 seconds. This one's 7, and they are almost always permanently up because of the amount of flash charges gained, and me taking, gaining flash shots when I'm being hit. So, as a result, this is almost always permanently up, even when fighting bosses. And that's pretty much it regarding gear. Let's talk about skills. So, on your chest armor, you're going to go your 6 link, which is your Shield Crush. I would have gone life tap support because then I don't have to deal with the mana problems as well as maps where I can't leech mana. But you don't have to do this. If you want to have more damage, you can swap this out for another damage ability, and then hopefully get Aurion Crafts to reduce the cost of your True Crush. Um, I have melee physical damage as well. You can replace this with Cruelty, but for now, I'm using melee physical damage because I actually don't have no idea. But yeah, I'm using melee physical damage right now. I might swap it out. We'll see how. I actually have an Awaken Multi-Strike because I bought this quite cheap. It was 13 exalts when I decided to buy it. Uh, Honestly, you don't need it. You can just use a normal multi-strike. The reason why multi-strike is so good for Shield Crush, Poison especially, is because um, says supported skills have more attack speed, so that's great. You're gonna attack more, you're gonna apply more poisons. Supported skills deal 20% less attack damage, which doesn't affect you because it's not your attack damage that is you don't skill like your attack damage doesn't scale your poisons, right? So this is actually not a negative uh, for you, and it's not an issue, right? So support skills deal 10%. Yeah, uh, no, sorry, that's the quality. That's irrelevant. So first repeat of support skills deals 22% more damage. So this first repeat that deals 22% more damage applies to your ailments as well. So that means the first repeat will give you 22% more poison damage, and then your second repeat will give you 4% more poison damage. In this case, because it's a Wicked Multi-Strike, there is a third repeat that gives 66, but it's perfectly fine to just use a normal Multi-Strike. And then you have Unbound Ailments, which is very, I would say, essential. Mainly because you're not assassin, you don't really have ways to deal or scale duration of ailments on enemies. So your poisons are generally not going to last as long as if you were to use an assassin, right? So Unbound Ailments is going to help you to keep your DPS up because it basically gives you extra 1 more second on your poison, right? And the overlaps will be more. Daily ailment support is great only because it gives such a huge amount of more damage with ailments. However, it does reduce your damage with hits, so you will get less leech. So do take note of that. For your healing shield, you will definitely go Plague Barrier. I have gone Life Tap here to make it more clean and easier to play with. And Power support. For your helm, or rather for force socket, like you can do this on your gloves or your boots. You're gonna have a Defiance banner, Grace, Domination. These are your auras. If I could afford an Enlighten, I'll put it here, but they are really expensive right now. You want Shield Charge linked to faster attacks. I have linked Hex Touch to Punishment, but honestly, you don't really need this. I just didn't know what to put in the slot, so I did that. You just need the Shield Charge to faster attacks. For this one, you have Spell Totem, and you need to link it to Wither and multiple totem support. This is for bossing, because then you are able to stack maximum Wither stacks on the target you want to hit. I have Herald Agony here as well, maybe because I've got no other place to put it. But yeah, for weapon, I have put my Molten Shell and my Withering Step and Flame Dash. As you notice, I am not using Castle Damage Taker on a Molten Shell. I'm manually casting it on my left click, and when I need to cast Val Molten Shell, it is my T button. So, onto the skill tree. So when it comes to skill tree, it's pretty generic. This is almost exactly what every other Pathfinder poison build will look like. You're gonna path you get all the very central nodes of life, spell suppression. I only get this because I don't get a lot of spell suppression on my gear. If I had better spell suppression rolls, I wouldn't need this. But for now, I'm using this because I have no choice. This is the only way to get 100% spell suppression. So then you get the poison cluster here. This gives you damage. You get the claw notes here because it does give you some damage over time multiplier for poisons, but mostly here because you get enemies poisoned by you cannot do critical strikes, and that's really good because critical strikes are one of the things that you consider rippy in this game and will cause you to die. So by making enemies not able to do critical strikes, you're gonna be able to you're gonna be more tanky, right? So here is just mostly life as well as spell suppression. Life is spell suppression. You go for accuracy and attack speed. This is really nice as well. This is more poison modes, and then you path here for more spell suppression. The only reason why you go down here is because you get the evasion and life node, as well as you have the ability to add this mastery, which gives you Grace's 25% increased mana reservation efficiency. I've gone for a strength, uh, notable here, only because I don't have enough strength to hit the 200 for my all resistance, but you don't have to, really depends, it's up to you. Uh, I pop down here because I want to take the aura cluster. This is one of the strongest aura clusters or aura nodes in the game on in this passive tree. So do come down here for these. You do get the low hanging fruit of a jewel socket in 2 points. Down here you have chaos damage over time multi for more damage, as well as some chaos resistance. Down here I've added 1% of chaos damage over time multiplier per 4 chaos resistance. You path down here for more life, for some stats. This gives strength as well. It gives dex and intelligence, and dex and intelligence here. The nodes here for damage are pretty good, so you will these as well. I pathed here to get the life and mana on hit, and the life leech and mana leech, but you don't have to do this, it really depends. You go down here for more life, more sockets, and then here for resistances. Ghost Dance is nice because you're hitting about maybe 20 to 30k evasion, so it helps you keep your energy shield up. Your energy shield is going to come from your chest for Dendrobate and from your Magna Eclipses, right? And your Gull. So Gull has 149. This has a 287, and this has 122. So you're getting quite a bit of energy shield out of this, which adds to your overall EHP. So if you notice, my life seems pretty low, which is 4.6. But when you add in the energy shield, it goes up to 5.2, and that's pretty manageable. Pop up here because now he gives you quite a bit of damage, and you get the increased effect of Wither on your Chaos Mastery. You also get the life notes here, and if possible, you get the other two if you can afford it. When it comes to the anointment, your anoint for corruption with a 35% increase effect of Wither is great, especially when you have an additional 20% increase effect with it, giving you up to a 135 to 137% increased chaos damage taken by enemies at 15 Wither stacks. So that's really helpful. When it comes to the Ascendancy points, you go for Nature's Reprisal. Uh, you go for Master Toxicities. This is probably one of the best for poisons. This is probably the first, also the first Ascendancy point you get. You go here for Nature's Adrenaline. It's nice because move speed and attack speed. And Master Surgeon is like super strong, right? Because Master Surgeon with Legend Flask means that every time this procs and gets triggered, almost every 2 hits, you heal for about 30, no, 6 times 4 is 24% of your life. So heal for 24% of your life. It doesn't count the fact that you will be probably spamming this as well. So you can constantly keep your life up, and as long as something doesn't one-shot you, you're not likely to die. And that's pretty much it. Is there ways to further improve this build? Probably. I will be experimenting and trying my best to make this scale. But I'm also pretty confident that scaling this is going to be exceptionally hard. And you just generally want to play, get maybe at best 5 million DPS, and then stop and move on to another character. But in short, this is going to be a very comfortable league style for a lot of players. It's very smooth to map with. It is quite tanky. I would say it's very tanky. If you look at the defenses, and I even have everything up, you have about 40k armor and about 24k evasion. If you had a granite and a what's it called again? If you get the armor and evasion flask as well, this will go out quite nicely, but you just won't have access to these, which I think are very useful and helpful, especially when dealing with from elemental weakness curses, as well as you know taking just elemental damage in general. Well, I hope you enjoyed this showcase, and I will drop a POB in the description. All the best to your league starters, and if you do want to try this out, let me know, and I can help you with it. All right, peace.